Hello and welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for your time. As I always say, I don't take it for granted because I know you could be doing so many other things. Now, we've all heard of the term Zambia Kuchalo. And I think loosely translated, it means Zambians in the diaspora. Such is my guest today. He's an entrepreneur. He's been recognized by his peers in his sector. And he's here today to share his story. Let's welcome Trevor Mumba. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated. Like you said, I don't take it for granted
Aha.
to be recognized and to be invited to be a guest on this great show.
Excellent. Well, I think let's start from the beginning. I recall that in the 80s, in the 90s, we heard of a lot of Zambians leaving, especially going to America and going to the UK. It was much later on that we heard of Zambians going to South Africa, where you live. But my question really is, many Zambians who left did not go into business out there. How did it happen for you?
I think a lot of Zambians that leave and then go and wherever they are going, I think they are going because they're educated. So they go and get jobs. And I think that's the biggest reason why you don't see a lot of Zambians in the diaspora in business. I didn't have a choice. When I left Zambia, I didn't have any qualifications. So even leaving Zambia, I never expected if I got a job that it would be anything special. I was willing to do anything that came my way. And really, I just had to build a business. That was my only way.
Okay.
So yeah.
Maybe again from the beginning, tell me, where were you born? Where were you born here in Zambia?
I was born right here in Lusaka. Grew up in Matero. I actually started my grade 1 up to 3 in Mumba.
And what kind of family did you come from? What did your parents do? Was it a happy childhood?
That question always gets me. I always try and think, I think it was a happy childhood because I didn't know anything better, anything different. I think a lot of my understanding of my childhood only came in as I grew older. You start to think, man, we ate a lot of that, not because we loved it, it's because that's all we had. And I went to that school not because my grandmother had a choice, that's all she could afford.
You grew up with a grandmother?
My grandmother and a few aunties in Matero, yeah. But my grandmother played a massive role in my life, in my upbringing. And
did you have contact with your parents? What happened to your parents?
My mom died when I was 8, I think 8, 9. And a year later, my dad died. So my parents were not together. My mom was an agricultural specialist. She worked with Lindco. I think you remember Lindco.
Yes, the cotton company.
She was big on cotton. So I remember a big part of my memories with her were spending time in the farms when she'd be talking to the farmers about cotton, helping them with this, or teaching people about these pesticides or cotton seasons. Those are I think the only special memories I have of my mom. So that's what she did for a living. But she died when I was quite young. So that's when I moved from Mumba, where she was stationed, to come back to Lusaka and live with my grandmother in Matero. So that was from my 3rd grade upwards.
Living with your grandmother in Matero, I want to believe it was also with your other siblings?
I'm the only child.
You're the only child, okay. Yeah. But you said earlier that sometimes it's only now you actually remember that you ate this because that is all she could afford. Was that unique to just you and your household with your grandmother? Or did you feel this is how everybody on your street in Matero or generally in Matero was living?
Generally, that's how people lived. And this is why I'm not a fan of poverty. Because it gets to a point where people think it's normal. Because this is all you can afford. That's what your neighbors can afford. The whole community, that's all they can afford. And you start to think that's how people should live. But it shouldn't.
It shouldn't be. Tell me, what really sticks out in your mind? What was the worst experience for you? There must be something that even now you dare not wish that you could go back and say, oh no, I can't go back to those days. What was one of the worst for you?
I think, I don't describe it as the worst, but I think an awakening, like that one moment in my life as a kid where I decided, nah, this is not it. I did a TED talk a few years ago, and this, I think, was the start of my TED talk. So I remember it was a Monday morning. I remember it was a Monday morning because the previous day I hurt myself. I was playing football with friends, and I hurt myself, so I'd struggle putting on my shoes. And I was about to go to school, so I'm putting on my shoes there in my grandmother's little kitchen's door. And she stood there looking at me, and she tried to hide the tears. But do you know why she was sad in that moment? It's the shoe that I was wearing, a butter taffy. It was so beaten up. It couldn't hold anymore. Like you take it to the guys that fix the shoes, but you just couldn't. So I had to put a rubber band on it to hold the shoe together, the uppers and
the sole and the upper part.
I was a happy child. I didn't care. And then I looked at my grandmother and I realized this woman is hurting. At this moment, she wishes she could give me better. That day I promised. I didn't know how. I promised myself I would get rich and I would have as many shoes as I can. Fast forward today, deliberately, I don't know how many shoes I have. It's just a lot.
Okay, so tell me, you did primary school in Matero, secondary?
Matero is primary school. In secondary, I didn't do very well. So I couldn't, that pass mark at grade 7 to go to grade 8. I couldn't cut that. I initially picked Kamwala Secondary School, but I couldn't. So I ended up at Matero Boys Basic School for grade 8 and 9. And again, I didn't pass grade 9. So I went to Lotus Basic School for grade 10 and 11. And then I did my grade 12 at Linda Secondary School in
I've heard you twice, grade 7, grade 9. I didn't make the mark. I really didn't pass. Was it that you were just not academically interested? You just wanted to scale through? Or was it because of challenges at home?
I think it was
or
just
friends?
So my earlier years in primary school, I was very sharp. I remember... I still remember the kids that used to give me competition. There were 2 boys and a girl. So there was Kalikeka Simtowe, there was Arthur Mwelwa, I think, and then there was a girl called Nyawa Piri. So myself, Arthur, and Kalikeka would always 1, 2, 3. Just the 3 of us would take that position. 1, 2, 3. We owned those spots. Then from nowhere, this chick just came. And took number 1. I remember very well.
Girls do better when they get older.
Yeah, I remember that term. I think it was in grade 5. I got number 3. I cried because a girl
had beaten
me and my best friend then Arthur. But I think as I grew older and realized what my reality was, I just lost it. I just and to date, I'm not even ashamed to say, but I've never really passed an exam. Well, never.
So at grade 12, you did write the exam.
I did write.
Then what happened?
I got a distinction in English.
Excellent.
Yeah, and I think I laugh about it now, but I think
and everything else.
Everything else, don't worry about it. It was that tough. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what was the next step for you?
So, of course, you've got your family that will advise you need to rewrite, and you're still young, can do better so you can get good grades and get into university or college. It was very hard for me to convince anybody that I had seen where I was going and I didn't need that. You are young. At grade 12, you're very young. So you can't, I tried to tell this uncle of mine, I want to do business. I remember his words, business is for criminals. You end up in jail. I don't know any honest business people. You need to go back to school. But
for a long time, we all said that school was just for getting a job.
But I knew I would fail again because the interest wasn't even there. I won't even lie. It wasn't there.
Where was this business spirit, business interest coming from? Was there somebody in the family you had seen or heard about? Because you said at a very early age. Where was the seed coming from?
Interesting enough, My earliest experience in business was with my grandmother making donuts. So one of my aunties was a tailor, a fashion designer. So she always had these offcuts, these little pieces of clothing lying around. And my grandmother was very good with her hands. So she would get, these empty 25 kg bags of maize meal, and she would create very cool designs of donuts.
Yes.
So I remember this one time she made this very cool, and it just had two colors. I think she had like this green and blue and some wave that and I was like, Gogo, this is nice. I think people would want it. So he says, which people? I said, I don't know, neighbors. She said, can you sell it? I said, I can try. And I just took it. I went around the neighborhood and somebody bought it. And my grandmother was like, we can do this. So she started making some donuts, and it would take her like a week, because she's just doing it for fun.
And you became her sales boy.
And I would get my little break money from their books. But I also realized that's how she could help out with some books. And then she taught me how to fry groundnuts, and go and sell in Matero Stadium, because we lived just close to the stadium. I would walk to Garden from Matero to go and buy sugar cane, and sell them with my friends. She taught me how to make popcorn. And my childhood, I think from my 4th or 5th grade all the way, I was selling something.
Always.
So I just fell in love with the idea of taking a little money, putting it into a product, selling the product, getting the total, and knowing this is what my capital is, this is my profit. Or if I need more groundnuts this weekend, I'm going to put all the profits back so I can buy more groundnuts and sell more. I just fell in love with that whole process. At some point...
Some people would claim that exposing a young child to a situation like that might actually, put them in... They might end up in trouble. You were growing in Matero. I am sure in your neighborhood there were bars, there were all kinds of things going on. Was there some temptation to join that and say, I'm just going to give up on life? I can see what everybody else is doing.
I had a very, very grounded childhood. My grandmother instilled a lot of discipline in me, my family in general. So to date, I've never smoked anything. I've never drank anything alcoholic, and I come from Matero. My decisions to not touch alcohol are not even religious. I don't live my life the way I do because God will ban me. Yes, it's a story for another day. But it's just on principle.
It was to get out of poverty.
It was to get out, yes. So I understood the dangers of all those vices very early. So my love for money and business was all good. Make money, help my family out to take care of me, pay school fees where necessary, buy some food, buy myself some clothes. It's hard, So you're not always going to be asking people, I need a new pair of shoes. So I learned how to make money to do that. And as I grew older...
keep away from bad vices.
Keep away from bad vices. And it was one of the things that inspired me to get out of Matero. Because I just, there are people that fall so in love with where they grow up. And sometimes that's the problem. Just because you are born and raised there doesn't mean you belong there.
When you left first time, where did you go when you left Matero?
The first place I stayed when I left Matero was Roma on Zambezi Road. Got myself a little room there.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was only a few months into staying in my little room on Zambezi Road when the rain started that I realized how many holes were in the ceiling. Because I woke up, so this landlady of mine, I think she converted a garage into a room. Yeah. So I don't think they had done much work on it. And I was like the first tenant for that little room. So this one night I woke up and I was soaked. I had to raise my mattress and put it against the wall, and I just sat in the corner, and they fixed it afterwards. But that's where I moved to from Matero. And just being in that environment, even though my room was that bad, and seeing neighbors that live differently from what I was coming from, driving nice cars. I just knew I would just keep pushing until...
Were there times you found yourself actually crying, tears coming down?
Not really crying. It's very interesting because I'm very vulnerable now. as I get older, and that's my superpower. You know, I've learned to be a real man that can cry when he feels certain emotions. I had to learn that. Growing up in the ghetto, you are taught men don't cry. Everybody's just trying to be hard, and that's a big problem. You can't just all be hard, you know. So there's a lot of pain I felt, a lot of emotions, but I didn't understand how to process that. And my younger years actually used to fight a lot. And that's
So
why.
you were not drinking, you were not smoking,
But I was very
but
angry.
you had a temper.
I was very angry. And this is why now I'm like the most patient guy, because I've learned to deal with my emotions.
Now tell me,
Yeah.
what was the process for you to make this decision to leave Zambia? It's quite daunting. You were coming from Matero, you were just a grade 12. I mean, how do you get into that space where you say, there's nothing for me here, I have to leave this country?
I had so many ideas. I had so much energy. I always just wanted to do better. But remember, I failed my grade 12. So approaching people and asking for help, even asking for help that did not need any qualifications at all. You know, sometimes as Zambians, we are so obsessed with qualifications. I love education, and I'm always encouraging youngsters, get as much education as you can. But sometimes that's not it.
You need somewhere to begin from.
Somewhere, you know. So I would ask people, help me out with this. What qualifications do you have? I'd be like, but this has got nothing to do with any qualifications. Even if I had a qualification in something, this idea that I have is completely outside. I got frustrated. I was so frustrated. I looked around and I realized I'm not going to make it here. And I was right.
What people were not helping you with was support for entrepreneurship.
Entrepreneurship.
Okay.
Or just to believe in me, you know, and my family, you know, everybody, family is
Most
great.
critic.
Family is great.
Most critical.
But if you're not careful, they could also be a massive contributor to your downfall, because
be the
everybody
most
has an
critical.
opinion. Even people that haven't done anything sensible for themselves know what you should do. You know, so I looked at that and I thought, I don't want to be disrespectful, you know, but I need to go away to a place where nobody knows me, where nobody cares, but where ideas as crazy as mine are can be supported.
How old were you at this point?
I actually was in my 20s.
Okay.
So looking at maybe mid-20s. And that's a very confusing stage for a lot of young people, because the people you went to school with are probably just getting done with university. Some of them are getting their first jobs, their first cars, and there were a few that were very bright in school, so they got jobs early and they were already telling you, I got a plot, I'm building, and here you are still pushing, still hustling, you know. So I think I was in my mid-20s.
Tell me about the day you left for South Africa.
Yeah, so the day before, I bought a one-way bus ticket on Sierra Bus Carriers. And yeah, the day that I left, I remember the bus, I think, left the station Intercity. No, it was, they had a station in town, close to Barclays. Yeah, so I went there, got on a bus, and that's it. And I just told myself, I'm not coming back here until something changes in my life.
How long was the bus ride?
So we arrived the following evening, I think. Yeah, so about a day and a half.
Did you know anyone in South Africa?
Not really. Again, right? I knew some guy, and a few months before, I was talking to him, telling him what my plans were. I'm planning to come to South Africa. Can I come and live with you when I get there? I was like, yeah, of course.
A Zambian? You had met him here?
A Zambian, you know. And I got to the border. I told him, I'm at the border now. Yeah, just call me when you get close to Johannesburg. And that's it. His phone just went off.
Oh my God. Well, we're going to take a break, and then we'll be returning to continue to hear the story of Trevor Mumba and his life and how it turned out in South Africa. Well, we're still talking to my guest today, Trevor Mumba, and he's just about to tell us how his life turned out after he arrived in South Africa. So you arrived there, and this gentleman's phone is off.
Yeah.
What happened to your heart?
Yeah, I mean, Johannesburg now, and you know the stories that you hear about Johannesburg. But long story short, I ended up just staying with a guy that I didn't know. We actually became friends. He had just started his new job as well. He had an extra room, I think, that he could rent out. And
Another Zambian.
he was Zambian, yes, you know. So he told me, hey, look, if you've got some money to help with the rent, that would work. And I'd saved up a bit of money before traveling. So stayed with this guy. His name was Andrew. Great guy. You know, so I moved in with him, and immediately I started looking for a job. I was staying in Northgate, and there is a shopping center called Northview, just around the hood. I remember very well the first place I was thinking I would try and get a job was a KFC, just right in the neighborhood, because I could just walk there. It's like a kilometer from where we stayed. I still remember this manager's name. Her name was Pinky. You know, she just told me, we can't hire you, you're a foreigner. Okay, cool, thanks. You know, and I just started looking for jobs. I remember I got a call back from Wharton's, their stationery shop, a stationery company, not shop. And they've got their own stores, but they do a lot of merchandising in different supermarkets, ShopRite, you know. And they called me for a merchandiser job interview. And I got lost.
So you never made it?
I never made it.
Okay. So what was your first job?
So my first job was a door-to-door sales job. You know, so
A door-to-door sales job in a country, okay, of course there's English, but you don't speak the local language.
I don't.
You don't know the geography very well in Johannesburg.
Yeah. Yeah, so exactly that. So even the interview itself, right? So I applied for this job, and then this man called Alan Baxter, a white guy. I'm very good with names, if you've noticed. I don't know, I just remember everybody. Alan Baxter calls me, says, hey, you applied for this job. I'd like to call you for an interview, gives me his address. And, you know, I didn't really get lost for that one. I found it easy. You know, then I realized this is not a company, it's a house, you know. So he tells me, no, don't worry, I'm just a recruitment agent. I'm recruiting for this sales company. This is what they do. He just told me the truth. This job is very hard. People don't really stick around there. This is why they're even using me, try and help them recruit. Like, what do? They sell different things, toys and cell phone contracts.
Door to door.
Door to door.
Before online shopping.
Before online shopping. So I was like, he's like, if you don't mind, I can actually set up an interview with the director of the company today. So this was around maybe 11. I'm like, okay, sure. So he makes a call, and the guy says, yeah, tell him to come through. So he tells me, look, it's actually not far from here. You can walk. So you come out of my house, go down, left, you find Malibongwe Drive, and just go up until you get to Republic, turn right. This guy says you can walk. He doesn't walk. I don't know why I believed him. So I walked. Dora, I got lost again. I arrived there 3 hours later. The director had left. I was like, I really need this. They were like, you have to come back tomorrow. I'm like, I don't mind. At least I know the place. So I went back. That's how they hired me. And that was my first job. I learned so much from that job. The money was terrible, but the lessons were great.
So that was your education, your first proper education.
That's where the idea for my marketing company came from that one job. I just thought I could do this on a better scale, could treat people better, I could pay people better. I just know. So I spent maybe 3 years just learning as much as I could, you know, asking a lot of questions. And I got promoted to a little training manager, and now I had a little team and was making a little bit of money on my team, you know. And the whole time this whole time I was living in South Africa illegally. So all the little money I was saving, I used it to put my papers in place, and as soon as I could, that's when I registered Rovet Marketing.
So straight from that first job, then you went straight into your own business.
Into my own business, yes. Yeah.
All this time you decided you were going to South Africa, especially the first 3 years. First of all, how was it for your grandmother? What kind of conversation did you have with her to say, I'm leaving? I am an only child of your daughter, but I'm going away and I might not come back.
That was exactly the conversation. And in my mind, I thought I'd get some resistance from her. But she just said, I've heard stories about South Africa. Just be safe. I know how I raised you, so I'm not worried about anything else. I know who's going out there. Says, whenever you can, just remember to call home, call any of your cousins and speak to me. And that's what I used to do. And I just told her, till further notice, Gogo, I won't really make a lot of money, so I can't help you. I can't. I will where I can, but I need all the money that I can make to build myself up. She was like, I know, it's fine.
I understand.
And she understood, And the next time she saw me, I actually drove my Mercedes into her yard.
Let's go back a little bit. You finished working with Waltons. You make that important.
No, I never got a job.
Oh, no, not Waltons.
So
yes.
that company was called PDM.
PDM.
Yeah.
So you transition now to say, I've learned a lot from PDM. I'm going to start my own business. Again, very daunting decision. I want to believe you're still living with your friend, Andrew.
No, I'd moved on.
You had already moved on.
Moved, yeah.
Now, how did it all come together for you to really say, I can take a chance on myself, basically?
Yeah, look, it's really tough. I've just taken a lot of risks. Sometimes I look back, I'm like, geez, that was something.
The biggest problem for most Zambians, I'll tell you, I can't start a business because financing, I don't have the money. You were in South Africa. How did you finance your business?
I saved up. I was working patiently, putting away whatever little money that I could, And I figured this is what I would need if I start a business like this. Because, again, right, I may have failed at school, but you never stop learning. So you're always asking questions. You're always seeing what other people are doing. And I was putting together all this information. If I start a business, what would I need? So I registered my company. It was a closed corporation back then. So a closed corporation in South Africa, I don't think they even do them anymore. Was this small company that you could run even as a foreigner. It's a small business, had some restrictions, but you could open a bank account. You could run, So I figured I'll start from there. And what would I need? I would probably need a small office. How much would that cost? So I had all these figures in my head, and that was the goal. The goal became specific because I knew exactly what I was working towards. So I saved up, and that's how I started, with as little stuff as I could. My first furniture was second-hand stuff that I got from, you've got these pawn shops called Cash Crusaders. I went to Cash Crusaders. I got myself my chair, got my table, got 2 visitors' chairs. I got a second-hand boardroom chair, table, chairs, and that's it. And that's how we started.
Do you remember the first time you employed somebody?
Yes. The first guy I had on my team when I started, finally, was a guy called John. And I remember the two of us standing in that office, and I'm like, John, we are going to build this company, man. Me and you are going to take over. And John's looking at me like, yeah, whatever.
Are you serious?
Is this guy okay? But I laugh about it now. But of course, John stuck around for a few months. I wonder where he is now. I'm sure if he checks, it's like, that guy actually did all that stuff.
You've been in business for a while now. When did the break come? When did you say, yes, after this deal or after this phase, I have arrived. This is what I came to South Africa for.
Interesting that happened very quickly. So my first deal ever was with Virgin Mobile, selling SIM cards. So Virgin Mobile comes into the market, and they have a very, very straightforward goal. we just need as many subscribers as possible, so these guys are not investing in infrastructure, towers and all that. They cut deals with all the major players. They're piggy banking off everybody from Vodacom to MTN, so they can just go countrywide at once, but they need people to buy their SIM cards, because that's where, if people are using your SIM cards, that's where you're making money. So they needed someone to sell SIM cards, and the SIM card costs nothing. So the deal that I had with them was very simple. You sell a SIM card, but you load it with 50 Rand airtime. Okay, so the customer is actually paying you 50 Rand. Okay, and that is your payment. The same 50 Rand. Us, we just want an activation. So this SIM card is now activated, it's online. Okay, and with the ICASA laws in South Africa coming in just around that same time in 2010, where people were allowed to port numbers from one subscriber to, even now you can do it. So you can have an MTN number on Airtel. If you're not happy with their service, who cares? It's allowed in South Africa, So that's exactly what we did, and we got a lot of people porting their numbers from MTN onto Virgin, and some of them were like, I'll just use it as an extra number. And Virgin came in with these very attractive deals, especially on data, entertainment. And so think about it. I'm making a 50 Rand per SIM card, right? And I hired 10 guys first. Then I moved it to 20. Now, each one of these guys has a target of selling 10 in a day. Okay? So each one of them is making me 250.
In a day.
In a day. Okay? I've got 20 of them. Okay? That's 5,000.
Yes.
Okay? Times 6 days.
Exactly.
I was killing it. I made my first R1,000,000 that same year when I started my business. And that's when I went and bought myself my 2-door Mercedes.
The Zambian thing, right?
The one that's registered in Zambia. Yeah, I actually registered it here, and I went back with it. And I love that car. It's not the most expensive car I own, but it's my favorite because of the history I have.
Would you say that your personality, not drinking, not smoking, yes, there are many people who are raised in a poverty environment, but they will easily turn to, some social devices. Would you say what was unique about you were just those that you had this grandmother that was a good disciplinarian, you were not drinking, you were not smoking? Was that the key?
Yeah, look, upbringing really matters. But also there's a part where you have to take some accountability as a person.
Personal ambition.
Like me, what do I want for myself? And personally, I realized that away from how I was raised, I just didn't find any of that stuff attractive. It wasn't my thing, and I always reminded myself of why I never even found it attractive when I was young, because we had the so-called big brothers and uncles in the neighborhood whose lives you could tell were destroyed because of alcoholism. And I told myself, I don't want that. So if I'm going to be different, how do I need to live my life? What do I need to do? So even when I was making all this money, I never forgot. I remembered. This is what alcohol does to people, and I don't want it.
You make your first million. Was there a sense of, I had to come to another country? I have a country called Zambia. Would I have had a chance to make $1 million in 2010?
With my circumstances?
Did you feel sad that you had to go to another country?
In that moment, I really didn't care much about Zambia. I won't lie to you. I think my patriotism only kicked in later. I really didn't care.
You felt the country had failed you
my
here?
country had failed me. Really, it had failed me. And to some degree, I still believe that. I won't even lie to you. If I had not left, I doubt this conversation would be happening right now. I would have probably made it, but not the way that I did. Maybe in a criminal way or... The thing is, I'm very smart. It's something I rarely talk about. I actually sometimes downplay it. And this is what scares me, because I know how smart I am. If I had not made it the right way, Dora, I would have ended up doing very bad things. I know myself. I know how my mind works. So in that moment, making it in South Africa that way, I was so proud of myself. But I was making money so quickly. There were lessons to be learned. So I lost all that money again very quickly.
What happened? Share. What happened?
Firstly, I didn't understand money. You know,
So you were just spending
money
it.
is a science, and you need to learn it. And this is why sometimes even kids that come from homes with money, if they're not exposed to money and they're not taught money, this is why they still lose it after their parents die. You need to learn it. So I didn't know it.
So you lost the first million.
I lost it so quickly. I was blowing it fast. I don't know if you like hip hop. There's a Rick Ross song, BMF, Blowing Money Fast. That's what I was doing. I was blowing money fast. I just didn't understand it, And it was a very painful period because I had to close my business down for about 2 years, completely closed down. Couldn't pay office rent anymore, couldn't pay any employees. I had to close down and leave, Lost everything, my nice luxury apartment, ended up renting a room in someone's house. And just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, as they say, when it rains, it pours.
It pours.
2014 was the most painful year of my life because while I was going through all these things, I'd lost my business, my girlfriend, money, everything. My grandmother died.
So she never really saw the success you have become.
She sort of had an idea because I was coming home. So
Did she ever come to South Africa?
No, she didn't. But she never enjoyed it. And my last conversation with her, I was in Zambia, I visited her, she was just saying, I'm very proud of you, just keep working hard. And we spoke about very personal things in the family that she wanted me to know, odd people and their wisdom, it's there are things they tell you that sometimes take years to kick in. And she told me how there's a lot of things I won't be happy with in the family, but that's a position that fate chose for me, And
So you lose this money.
yeah.
How did you come up, or how long did it take you? You said you were at home for 2 years. Then were you working in this time? How did you come up with more financing for your next project?
I did all sorts of things. So in that, very early, just after I lost my business, without any qualifications, right, I tried to look for a job. So another funny story. So I see an ad online in South Africa by this investment company called De Vere Group.
Yes.
And they are looking for investment consultants.
And you, with
offshore
no education, you went there.
Minimum qualifications, they listed them there, business, banking, blah, 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 blah. But they wanted someone for Zambia. They were hiring for Zambia. The only qualification I had was that I was Zambian. So I apply, right? And I get a call from a guy called Brian. He says, "Hi, Trevor, I'm calling you from DV." I'm like, "Yes." He says, "Trevor, did you read the ad?" I'm like, yeah, I did. It says, "Did you forget to update your CV when sending it to?" I'm like, no, that's all. That's everything. It says, "But you don't have any of the academic qualifications we are looking for." So I just said, "Can I ask you a question, Brian?" He said, "Yes." I'm like, "Is there training for whoever you hire before you send them out?" He says, "Yes." I'm like, "That's all I need."
So you got the job in the end?
He's like, "I'll call you in for an interview just out of curiosity." He just said it. And I impressed them, and they sent me to Cape Town for training for a week.
And that's all you needed?
That's all. So I came back to Zambia, worked at their office close to Parliament.
Yes.
I think giving me like £2,000 a month.
And how long were you there for?
I was there for under a year.
And that's where now you found more financing to go back.
I saved up quite a bit, but again, I made one stupid investment with part of the money, which I ended up losing again.
Tell me, would you now confess to say, not having that formal training, you have the business instinct, but if a young person was listening to you today, that education, formal training is still important because then you can try and get some things right first time?
It is. It is very important. But even after you get the education, right, you have to go out there and go into the actual war because no matter how much education you get, there are lessons that you only learn by practice.
So ambition, experience, education all
of
together
it, yeah.
is better.
Act and accountability.
You said something about now you're more patriotic. There's a trend that, young people, especially in Zambia, they say, I have made it now, I have some money, so the next stage is I must do politics. Is that the same for you?
Yes. And for me, I feel it's not even about, I think the reason why a lot of people arrive at that after making some money, in my case, is sense of duty.
What is it you think you cannot do now as a successful businessman that you can only do in politics?
There's only so much influence that I have as a businessman that I can't get until I get into politics, where I can influence how certain decisions are made. You can influence how certain decisions are made in business, but you have to be very big. You have to be at a point where you
have
pick
to be
up
the
the
Elon
call
Musk.
today with say, Mr. President, I don't like that statement you gave in that address. I'm pulling my funds out of that investment, and the president can change his mind. You have to be on that level.
You're an entrepreneur. I mean, as we're coming to the end, you're an entrepreneur. Do you think as a country, Zambia, yes, you live in South Africa, you're saying you've now found your new patriotism for the country. Do you think as a country, coming from the UNIP days when entrepreneurship was frowned upon, do you think we're getting there now? Do you think this so-called pulling him down syndrome, we are over it now? Do you think that young people now have this real opportunity to be honest millionaires in Zambia, because all we hear about is corruption?
The PhD is not done. We're still like that. One of the things, again, accountability and responsibility. We need to be very honest as people. You know this thing that Zambians are friendly, we are good people. To who, though? I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Okay, people smile at you, but you know what's interesting? I've helped a lot of people in this country, a lot of people. Sometimes you're busy trying to help people. It's not the help they need. They want your life, Dora. They want to be you.
They want to replace
now,
you. Okay.
without, they don't even care all the things you've gone through, the price you've had to pay to be there. What is that? So mindset, we're still a long way from changing it. Okay? And that's just a fact. So, of course, we've made some progress as a people. The way we look at money has changed. We are more open to entrepreneurship. We've seen a few honest millionaires. Money, even for people that don't have it, is not such a strange concept the way it was back in the day. But we still have a long way to go. And I always like to tell people, look, you can't say you want to build a strong economy, but people are still very uncomfortable talking about money. Bring up a money topic even in your family. See how uncomfortable people get.
We are afraid of money?
We are afraid of talking about money. And yet it's the one thing we need every day. I just told you earlier in the interview that money is a science. You need to learn it. If you're not talking about money and we're not comfortable talking about money, we will never understand it. So we will never have it in amounts that we need to. Just talk about money. See how people start. Go to social media. Start a conversation on money. See how people start to argue and fight and become uncomfortable. Why? I thought you go to school so you can get good jobs, so you can make good money. I thought you're starting businesses so you can make good money. So why is it then when we start talk about the result of all the things you are doing, you start to get uncomfortable? So before we even talk about government policy and we talk about this and that, mentally as people, we are not there yet. One of the things I teach my employees, especially in my sales business, is money is good all the time. And all the time, money is good. The more you put that into your head, right, the better it becomes. So even when the money comes, you look at it as a tool that you need to enhance your life, not as a tool to help
and to
people,
help others.
And to help others because you understand it. It took me a long time to get there. And I know because I got there.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's basically my thoughts on that.
Well, very interesting ideas about money, really. And I think that there are a number of people in our country that will learn from you, that your journey was not easy. But you are there.
Still not easy.
And if you are there, you must also celebrate it. I mean,
Absolutely.
very soon we'll be having Heroes and Unity Day. And I think there are a lot of heroes in our country. And maybe sometimes we need to talk about who are these heroes and celebrate them and not bring them down, as you rightly say. I am sure that we'll have many other conversations on my podcast, but it was really a pleasure having you. I've no doubt that especially young people have learned that it takes discipline to get there. So thank you so much, Trevor.
No, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So that was my guest for today, Trevor Mumba. I think the takeaway really is that we must not be afraid to talk about money. That to get to where you want to go in life, you really have to work hard. You know that personally I have been engaged in the campaign against alcohol abuse. And I think one of the things that we could also learn from Trevor is that sometimes, especially as a young person, keeping away from vices such as alcohol abuse and drugs could actually be the way for you to save money to start your business. It's the idea that comes first, not the money, but the idea. And again, let us not be afraid to celebrate those that are wealthy and those that have made it, especially honestly, as Trevor emphasized. This was our conversation for tonight. Thank you for your time.